Hello, and welcome back to another chapter of Heroes and Hermits by Algonaver on AO3. Chapter 5. Under the night sky, Scar felt unusually peaceful. Maybe because it was not as dark as he expected it to be. He could not see any stars no matter how hard he looked. There were some shimmering objects in the sky, and Scar was certain that stars were not supposed to move that way. What were those things then? He climbed on one of the taller trees on the school perimeter, and had been sitting here for a while already. He came when the sun was still partially pink from the setting sun. This place had a quiet corner where he could collect himself and rest. Never once throughout the day did he fall asleep. Considering the time skip, all the planning and fast thinking he had to do, running around the school with Impulse, and constantly shoving away his worries about Cub, he expected to pass out right next to Impulse, in a warm bed to get ready for the next day. Instead, he was here, lying with his back to the tree, one leg bent to steady himself on a branch, the other one hanging below in the air. Cold was slowly chipping away at his fingertips. He would rub his hands together from time to time to chase away the numbness in them. The same way he would do this to his cheeks when they were prickling too much. Scar was exhausted. His eyes hurt and his mind refused to work. Sadly, it refused to turn off as well. It left him cornered on his tree, in desperation to focus on planning their next actions. Yes, he was supposed to be asleep, but at this point, he wanted something to happen, to not be stuck in the middle of not feeling and feeling too much at the same time. He needed to concentrate on what he and Impulse do next. Right. They had a base now, and some allies with it. Cub was somewhere here too, though Scar had no idea what happened to him to cause that reaction from earlier today. And Scar was yet to try messaging him. There was still some hope left. In some way, he wanted to put it off as much as he could because of the fear of it failing. At the same time, he understood that it was impossible to avoid. He either tries it now and knows for sure, or continues to torture himself. Turning on the comm, Scar reluctantly opened their private channel. Cub's status showed up as offline, but some determination in Scar allowed him to send one message. Good time with Scar. Hey Cub, are you alright? It failed to arrive. Because Scar hadn't suffered enough, apparently. His blank staring at the screen was interrupted by a sudden earthquake. Not enough to damage anything, but it did almost knock him from the branch. Scar jumped down on his own in fear of repeating shakes, exclaiming in shock when his foot hit an exposed tree root. His suit's shoes weren't meant for rough terrain, and he usually changed into something less stylish while building. His thicker high boots were always in his inventory, access to which he lost as he left Hermitcraft. His shout seemed to have alerted someone. Scar saw a figure approach from deeper within the trees, so he straightened his jacket and fixed the hat. Maybe he was a creep hanging out in the dark woods, but at least he could look decent. The less he looked like a zombie, the better. Less chance of getting an arrow to his face. When the stranger got closer, Scar could see it was a boy with curly dark hair, likely a student here. Oh, sorry, sir. Are you all right? I heard you shout, and I thought you were hurt. His young voice was shaky due to ragged breathing. The boy was trying to even out. Hey there. No, I'm fine. Just that earthquake caught me off guard, said Scar with a smile and stretched forward his arm. I'm Scar, by the way, and you? Izuku Midoriya, sir, from A1. 1A. What are you doing here? I don't remember ever seeing you here. They shook hands in greeting, and Scar noticed from how firm Izuku's grip was. His hand had a rough texture, similar to Scar's own. Oh, well, my friend and I came here not too long ago. Principal Nezu and we made a deal, so I'm gonna be here for some time. And you? Are students supposed to lurk in the woods when it's dark outside? You're lucky there aren't any monsters here. If Scar had this bow on him, he might have accidentally shot the kid. That would have been that wouldn't have been a very nice introduction. Izuku visibly shied away and smiled awkwardly. I was practicing my quirk. And that earthquake you mentioned was probably caused by it. I'm sorry. He lowered his head for a moment in a slight bow. It was Scar who was smiling this time. What a cute kid. Causing the literal ground to shake and being so polite and adorable. I hope you weren't hurt too much. I wasn't. This cold will probably kill me before you even get close, replied Scar. Or my back. It's starting to hurt again. Landed on it a couple days ago, and sitting on a tree kind of made it worse again. Scar could swear Kid's eyes got 10 times more intense. He avoided meeting his stare, choosing instead to straighten his jacket again. There was no malice or danger coming for Izuku, but it made Scar nervous. Maybe all kids were like that? It certainly has been a while since he saw one prior to arriving here. This thought made him feel like a dinosaur. Are you and your friend the ones who scared Class 1B? If your back hurts, it must have been a severe injury. Class 1B said you fell from the sky, and one of you was in terrible shape. Was it your friend? That was one very perceptive kid, Scar had to admit. Or you. My friend's Impulse. But he's fine now. Fortunate fella, sleeping calmly, all snuggled up in bed. And I am here battling against my insomniac mind. The kid suddenly snapped his fingers and said, I know a strategy to help you. My classmate introduced it to me, and it works every time. Curiosity got Scar following Izuku to the students' dorms. It was a line of identical buildings with a much more detailed exterior than the school's main building. Some greenery outside, pretty rounded windows. It was like they did not belong to the school at all. Other buildings around the school had white walls and blue glass as their main color palette to match the school, while these were looking out of place. Scar could bet these were built separately due to that style clash. The interior was spacious, with pale green as its main color. It created a soft atmosphere for the space, even if it was a bit empty. Well, kids need space to play around, right? He was just being grumpy after getting used to his own base, where everything had to be crammed into a tight shell of the Lambo. His fault for making it so narrow. Izuku's strategy, as it turned out, was tea. Scar was invited to sit down while he was boiling the water and preparing the cups. I was having some trouble with nightmares lately, so my classmate Yaoyorzu insisted on me drinking it before sleep, and it has fantastic smell. So nice. Told Izuku to Scar while waiting for water to boil, and Scar had to agree. Dry tea leaves Izuku took from a shelf let out the aroma even from the box. In comparison with the tea he had earlier at the meeting, anything would be better. After mixing the tea leaves with water, Izuku decided to check his phone. While he desperately wanted to learn more about this mysterious guy who appeared at his school, it might be an important message from a friend toward the agency. And it was. While not as important as he expected. Huh, said Izuku aloud. At the car junkyard, someone has stolen half the cars and has started a massive fire. Heroes were already dispatched from nearby agencies, and Endeavor Agency was asked to send out a fire specialist to assist. Half the cars? Scar was familiar with cars. They were massive machines that weren't that easy to lift. Are they heavy? Who needs all of them? No clue. Perhaps those who did it have some kind of shrinking or teleportation quirk. No way a simple strength quirk would be able to clear out hundreds of cars in less than an hour. And they left basically no visible evidence. Look at these photos. Izuku turned his phone to Scar, showing him a picture of a clearing. No dragging marks or footprints? Weird. Scar had to bite his tongue to hold off some remarks. No, he had to keep quiet. Someone like Impulse or Pearl were a person to pull things like that. Beat-ups or Corrales too. These crazy men. But with cars? If they were at a junkyard, that meant they were useless. Who would need a pile of junk to steal? Well, now there's more place to put more broken cars, said Scar, and that fire can clear out more space. I hope no villains are involved, replied Izuku, and turned to check the tea. When the tea was poured into cups and cookies to go with it were offered to him, Scar did not resist. He did not resist when Izuku started to ask him more about his quirk, too. There was no harm in indulging boy's interest, and Scar found his fascinated reactions and questions endearing. Scar had to twist some events to better fit the narrative, especially when mentioning how he and his other friend discovered their quirks. Scar dodged questions about Cub's quirk and name, just in case. There were plenty more topics Izuku was glad to bring up, eventually asking Scar to show him some trick with his quirk. And Scar, ever happy to show off, said yes, standing up and taking one more sip of that delicious tea. He walked to a potted plant in the corner and stopped a few steps away. Now, what could he do to impress the kid? He was limited in both magic and boundaries he set for his quirk. Next second, Izuku was being swept off his feet in a rush of green, and everywhere he looked there was an endless sea of swirling leaves. He was somewhere else now. In front of him was a massive tree. When he turned around and blinked, he saw the dorm kitchen covered with mushrooms of all shapes and colors. Some were as high as the ceiling. Izuku turned again, trying to locate Scar in the mess of bushes and leaves, shiny crystals and grass. It was as if a jungle came alive in his dorm. A magical forest of shiny lights and giant butterflies. Wasn't Scar's quirk about ground plants? Where did giant butterflies come from? Izuku ran forward until he reached the wall, covered in moss and vines. It was still a wall, meaning he wasn't teleported anywhere. It was disorientating. Really, because when Izuku blinked, the wall was nowhere close. He had to turn around to find it again, in place of the kitchen that was there before. Scar? Said Izuku loudly, looking around for him. Yes? Came from behind him, causing Izuku to jump around. He barely held off One for All from activating, with all his fighter instincts telling him to run or fight. Izuku bravely stood in place, looking at Scar, who was calmly sitting back in an overgrown chair, drinking his tea. What do you think? It's plant tea enough for you? Izuku chuckled and smiled awkwardly before nodding. He couldn't pinpoint what was more unnerving in that scene, the disorientating jungle in the kitchen, or Scar's grin with his shiny blue eyes. Then he was being thrown again. This time he found himself on the floor. Izuku opened his eyes after the fall, only to once more be sitting in the same place he was before, with Scar smiling at him across the kitchen counter, twirling a leaf from the plant in his fingers. Sorry if you lost your balance, kid. You good? That was insane! Izuku exhaled sharply and shook his head, as if he just went through a fever dream. His heart was pounding wildly, and his mind could not catch up to his body. It was a bizarre experience. How did you do it so quickly? Where did all the plants go now? And the butterflies? Can you make insects? Scar knew he fucked up. Genuinely. He thought that showing an illusion rather than conjuring up real plants would be a smart move. Less magic, more grandiose. Except he got carried away. And in his illusion of a jungle and the omega tree, he made it a bit too close to the real thing. Did an oopsie, so to speak. Scar smiled, not to show his inner panic, and tried to come up with an explanation. Oh, those? You like them? I'm happy you did. You see, there are these flowers that mimic insects to attract pollinators. I just made them bigger and ta-da! Impressive? When Izuku nodded in reply and continued to mumble about how creatively quirks could be used, Scar lowered his shoulders and rubbed his chest with a knuckle. His save worked out great. What also worked out great was now he was tired. A sleepy kind of tired. When you want to sink deep into the bed sheets and drown in its warmth and softness. It worked as magic, it seemed, so it was time for Scar to head back. So he stood up, only to discover hair sticking to his pants. Dog hair. He tried to brush it away, but it was notoriously hard to get rid of. How were students allowed to keep pets in here? Scar was surprised that a school that forced all of its students to wear uniforms allowed that. And now he wanted to pet the doggy. Turning to Izuku, he asked, "Do you have a dog in here?" No? Izuku seemed confused at the question, so Scar stepped around the kitchen counter and gestured at his now hairy pants. Oh, no, we never had a dog. We have a bunny, but it's a different color. Izuku tilted his head a bit, which Scar found kind of cute. Dogs did that too when they were listening or were confused. Oh, right! It was Ojiro who brought the fur here. Right, I remember now. He said he was visiting his grandmother today because she got a new dog. And he was sitting in this chair before you, so it makes sense that there would be dog hair here. Scar was happy for that person who got a dog, but he was upset he couldn't pet the dog. More than that, he was upset about Jelly. While he hoped she was safe at home and someone would feed her, he kind of hoped she would be here with him too. Jelly was not meant to be left alone. Scar's heart wouldn't accept that. He needed to go. Exchanging hasty goodbyes with Izuku, Scar rushed to the door and bumped into a Razorhead guy on the front porch. Scar could not focus on what he said to the teacher in that moment, only trying his best to get away. It worked, and he miraculously managed to come back to the medical wing undisturbed. His heels echoed in the empty school hallways, and Scar could not bring himself to walk slower. He hoped there wouldn't be any high schoolers here late at night to mistake him for a ghost. The place had an eerie atmosphere at night, being so empty and hollow inside. Just the right setting for a ghost to appear. Scar chuckled to himself as he came to a stop in the front door. Feeling mischievous, he wanted to phase through the walls and scare someone. Ideas for pranks were lingering on the back of his mind, but Scar pushed them away. He stayed firmly on the ground when his entire body refused to obey. The idea of turning the school into a haunted mansion was tempting. Mansions filled with monsters and magic were kind of integral to his origins after all, but Scar wanted to go to sleep. With all of his determination and willpower, Scar forced himself to move and open the door. Impulse was asleep, of course he was. And Scar did not want to disturb him, but there was a tiny problem. In the words of the wisest and greatest scholars known to the universe, there was only one bed. Impulse was by no means a small guy, but the bed itself was big enough, decided Scar. He went to the bathroom to wash his hands, change into that white hospital gown UA gave him when he first was placed here, and now his ghostly look could be called complete. Looking into the mirror, he gave his reflection his cutest smile. Crawling into bed was a challenge, which he failed immediately by snapping his foot on the bed frame. He raised his hands against the bed, preventing himself from falling, and he did not realize at first, but his pained hiss seemed to have been a bit too loud, because Impulse was now looking at him with his sleepy eyes, his face confused at first, but slowly relaxing. "Man, I thought you were a creeper or something." "What happened?" Impulse pulled up his blanket higher, nuzzling into it. His voice was quiet and muffled. Nothing. Just my toe being violently murdered by this bed," said Scar as he pulled half of the blanket on himself, causing Impulse to grumble disapprovingly. "Why are you awake?" Impulse's eyes were clearer now, and even in the dark, Scar could see his disgruntled face. "Couldn't sleep, obviously. But then the kid gave me some tea and almost talked me to sleep with his questions. Also meshed his cub? Well, tried to. It didn't go through. Maybe it's a distance thing. Some servers run a proximity chat only, which only messages on shorter distances. Could also be a server malfunction if we entered it incorrectly, causing a data conflict to appear that... Scar never heard the rest of Impulse's sleepy murmurings, falling asleep to his monotone tone. Hanging out with the kids turned out to be fun. Wait. He had primary red parrot wings? Cute birdie legs and a red sweater? Asked Scar in astonishment. He was sitting inside of one of the additional buildings on the UA campus. It was where A1A Izuku's class were training today. It was a weekend for them, so it was a chilled and laid-back kind of training, as Scar saw. They were jumping around, playing catch, and generally being loud. Izuku and Scar met outside the dining hall in the morning, where Scar introduced him to Impulse, who was not here with them because he was interested in the local tech lab. So he went there while Scar was told to wait. An hour later, while kids were in a full-on battle mode against each other, Impulse sent him a message that he designed a prototype for a communicator attachment with local technology that would allow them to send messages regardless of distance. Man, this was quick. That guy could probably build a raid farm with one hand, an item sorter with another, and fix a flying machine with his mouth. Still, their comms being unreliable in this world was another point of worry. It was one inconvenience they found out about this morning. Before heading for breakfast and meeting Izuku, Impulse ran some sort of test on their comms, discovering they had a limited range of 5 kilometers, or 3.1 miles, which was minuscule for their purposes, while other hermits could be anywhere. Good thing their new friend didn't mind sharing their technology with Impulse, who, judging by the message, quickly got used to it and even started tinkering on something. And now Scar got an interesting scoop to contribute to their search for others. "Yes, do you know him? He seemed very hurt and scared when I saw him that evening," said Izuku to him. They just got talking about Izuku's internship with a professional hero when Scar heard this familiar description. "He fell from the sky like you did here, just in front of me and Hawks." "He fell from the sky like you did here, just in front of me and Hawks," added the bird kid next to him, Tokoyami Fumikage. who didn't have the time to introduce Scar to everyone in his class personally yet, but most of them he did get to know. Scar told Tokiyami his costume was cool, and he saw earlier the thing he used for fighting was a literal shadow, which was very cool too. So this kid liked him now. Was that how befriending people worked? Scar knew this was a distinctively Korean-like description. Who else could randomly appear in this place, escape from everyone while cracking silly jokes? And yeah, the whole rare bird thing, it was green, for sure. Sending a message to Impulse about this, he started thinking of a plan. He also tried messaging Green just in case, and he sent one more to Cub to check if he perhaps moved closer. He did not. When he got a reply from Impulse that the prototypes were ready for installation, he was ready to go. Just a second later, he got another message. Impulse SV. If G is here and kids know where he's been, I could try to track him. Meet me for installation and we can come make up a plan. We need to hurry. They met up in their room. When Scar entered, he noticed how the bed was made now. Well, he left it messy after waking up. Impulse must be really annoyed with him at this point. Luckily, there was no storage system, or a chess monster, for him to criticize Scar for. Though he seemed to be more worried than annoyed, sitting at the table in the corner opposite to their bed. Various pieces and parts were scattered on the table. Impulse's own, taking apart communicator among them. Scar! You're finally here! Impulse reached out and took Scar's arm, slightly shaking it in his grip. Hurry up and give me your comm so I can install this thing. From how fast Impulse was talking, his anxiousness was even more apparent. Scar did not want to make him wait. Pressing the release button on his comm and passing it to his friend. Whatever engineering magic he was about to do, Scar trusted him. At least Impulse was polite enough to ask. Zeta, for example, would have tried to do his thing with Scar's arm still attached to the potentially dangerous exposed wires. Sorry, I was outside, and it took some time to get back. This place is huge, and they walk everywhere. Well, I got us some info. Scar sat down next to him to watch him tinker. All we have to do is convince Izuku to lead us to that place where he last saw Green, and everything will work out. We'll find him, and it'll be great. Impulse finished unscrewing the back panel on the comm and turned his eyes to Scar. You should stay here, Scar. I can go with the kid and find Green. What? Why? Scar put his elbow on the table and used his arm to prop up his head. We can't split up. Isn't like the first rule of old horror stories? We should stay together. Shaking his head, Impulse went to back to disassembling the device. Please don't get mad, but I don't want you falling into any holes and finding a creeper to blow up on. I'm not sure if respawn works in this world, and I have a feeling you will be the first one to find out if we let you go somewhere you can get hurt. Believe me, I don't want to go alone. But at the same time, I don't want to have to scrape your guts off the pavement. Scar chuckled and replied, Wow, so morbid all of a sudden. My friend, I'm thankful for your concern and care, but I'm not that fragile. Impulse looked up at him. Scar tensed up. I think. It was quiet for a moment. Then Scar sighed and theatrically threw his arm up, bending backwards in the chair. Alright, so what? Maybe I am clumsy and sloppy. There, you happy? Destroyed my poor old heart with your harsh words. Stabbed your friend right here where it hurts the most. He bent back a little more, chair inclining with him, now standing on his back legs. Oh, the betrayal! It feels like I'm in the desert again, stuck among cacti without a friend to my name. If only Green was there to take me away to burn something down. Scar, be careful. I would give all the clocks in the world for you to stay with me. No longer in the desert and the castle of stone. No wall shall stand between our friendship. Impulse tried to warn him, but Scar continued to scream. The eventual fall was inevitable, and Scar's chair slipped backwards, and he fell down with a shout. A grand finale for a grand show. Impulse was giggling as he helped Scar to stand up. See what I mean? Said Impulse as he had to lift Scar in his arms because he could not stand on his own. Sitting him on the bed, Impulse patted him on the shoulder. Scar shuddered, and Impulse saw how pained his expression was. He decided not to touch him for now. Yeah, fine, you win. And now my back hurts again. What is it, like 100th time in the past 2 days? Said Scar with a grunt, trying to wiggle into a less painful position. Now I have to stay here? Great. Just make sure not to scam anyone while I'm away. When Impulse was done upgrading their communicators, Scar told him where to find Class 1A, his training place. On the way there, Impulse had a chance to spam Scar with messages under the excuse of testing. But when the time came to actually talk to Izuku, Impulse was hesitant at first. He did not want to involve some random kid in his problems. But he was the only link they had to someone's whereabouts in this world. They had no news from Cub, and it made Impulse even more desperate to find Green. Sometime later, after a lucky chance meeting, Green was very desperate to get some fresh air. The van where he had been stuck for the past 3 hours was filled with smells of hair gel and perfume, making his head dizzy. His poor wings were forced to stay hidden all that time because he couldn't be comfortable in such a tight space otherwise. And without them there was less of a chance of him to be recognized. If that Hawks guy had been searching for him since their encounter, many people could be on the lookout for him. Looking in the mirror in front of himself, Green could barely recognize himself. The new outfit was certainly fitting, if a little too sparkly for his liking. He chose it himself after all, and it was reminiscent of his old dress he used on Hermitcraft for, important business stuff. This one even came with matching high-heel boots, which would perfectly disguise his avian legs. Walking in them made him a lot taller and a lot less sturdy on his feet. He did not have time for practicing. Green was doing it for a great purpose. Gloved hands lowered onto his shoulders to adjust the dress sleeves and the red matching collar on his neck. Green had to hold his laughter, not to give away his ticklishness. Behind him, Etho was smiling. That Green could see through the mirror. Even the mask could not hide Etho's smiling eyes. I can feel your weakness no matter how much you try to hide it, he whispered, and turned the chair Green was sitting on away from the mirror so they were looking at each other. If you tickle me, I will cry, and then all that sick makeup you did will be wasted, said Green in response. He gestured to him to take a step back and stood up, carefully balancing his posture. The heels felt foreign on his feet. It's been a while since he had to hide so much of himself. Yeah, good point. Etho finally opened the door, letting in some fresh air. He closed it a minute later and turned back to Green. Can you handle them alone while I go check something? That on fire robbed junkyard seems suspicious. I wanted to go check on it real quick. No, Green protested. You think I'll stay alone with these shady people while you go around on a sus junkyard? Etho, if you abandon me, my superhero friend will fill all of your orifices with eggs. Besides, you're the one who came up with this stupid plan, remember? So deal with it. When Etho first found him, Green nearly fainted from joy. Back then, he had not anticipated what would happen next. Etho was an enigmatic man for sure, but the things he was doing in this world were just plain weird. He refused to tell anything, speaking in riddles, as he always did when being Etho. Well, he bought Green pizza before putting him at dress, so Green will trust him for now, until he would need more pizza. And that is the end of chapter 5.